Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Federation. Welcome to State of the Federation. We have a very special episode for you guys tonight. We're going to be doing our fleet building for dummies. Not to say that you all are dummies, of course, but we want to just kind of break it down a little bit, try to work our way back to some of the newer players that might be showing up, and go back over some of the basics a little bit. So, joining me on this wonderful episode today, we have our usual friends and a special guest. So, I will start with Sean. Sean, how are you doing today? Welcome to State of the Federation, my man.
Thanks. I'm doing all right. It's been an interesting day.
Cool. Got some good stuff planned for us today?
I guess we'll see what comes around. I think we had a plan.
We love having plans. And of course, we have the usual suspects. We have Tucker, the Borg are amazing.
We are the Borg are amazing.
Hi!
Hi, Borg.
Yeah, no, how is everybody doing today? I'm really excited. This episode is my baby a little bit, so I'm really excited about it. This is a question, I mean, generally speaking, I have been messaged a couple of times on Board Game Geeks on various topics that we discuss in the episode, and I'll reply, and then invariably they'll reply back saying, thanks, hey, can you look at this build for me? And I'm like, well, yes, I can, but also, as a student of Eastern Classics, that's what I'm getting my master's in, I believe in teaching men to fish.
Give a man a build, he'll win for an OP. Teach a man to build, and he'll win for a tournament.
He'll win for an OP series.
He'll win for a storyline.
There you go.
Could always use an extra TAC Cube 001.
No, you can't.
And
you
of
can't
course,
even use one.
and we also have David. David, are you around here still?
Yes, even though I'm feeling like Scotty in Star Trek 3 when he says the fancier they make it, the easier it is to mess up the plumbing. I'm around and all is well.
I thought you were going to say the same way that Scotty does in the episode where he discovers Romulan ale.
Oh, no.
No. Maybe it was Saurian brandy? I don't remember.
Yeah. Romulan ale should be illegal. It is. It should be more illegal.
All right, guys. So we are, of course, going to start out with our fleet building special. And I don't know. I think the way to start with anything is to start with an idea. We like ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how it starts.
Someone is making fun of my layout on the stream.
Well, the heck with them.
We don't.
I think it's pretty.
Me and Sean, we don't need numbers. We're strong enough as is. Tucker and David, they're both drones. They get numbers.
Okay, now see. Here's the thing. I don't have the Twitch feed up. Maybe I should do that. So I don't actually know what we look like.
Well, you look like a guy on a horse.
With an awesome Borg implant.
And David looks like the Federation. But yes. So before I got distracted, we were going about some ideas for how we're building our fleets. And I don't know who wants to kick us off. I know Tucker's anxious about his baby, so maybe we'll let him do it.
Yeah, I mean, this is something. There are a lot of different starting places. I'm sure somebody will want to talk about understanding a meta at some point, but my favorite place to start off is with what in whatchamacallit, in oh wow, is that really what I look like? Okay, that's cool. What in Magic the Gathering terms would be called synergy. So basically, I want to take a example build, and this is one many people should be familiar with, but I'll walk us through it for the sake of newer viewers, which is the Janeway Prize build. Now, how does a build like this come to be? Okay.
Janeway Prize.
Say again?
Janeway Prize.
Janeway Prize, indeed. Well, so here's the thing. Janeway has a powerful effect. Janeway says, whenever you perform an evade, scan, or battle stations action, you may place an additional token of the same type next to your ship. If you do, gain an auxiliary power token. Well, everybody knows an auxiliary power token is the downside, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the thing. The USS Enterprise, the original, the NCC 1701, not the refit, has the ability that says the Enterprise can perform an action on its action bar while it has an auxiliary power token. Now, wait a minute. This means that the Enterprise completely negates Janeway's drawback. That means these two things have synergy. They work together, in other words. Now,
so you're talking about looking for combos.
Here's the thing. Here's the difference between synergy and combos, and that's a good comment, and it's one I want to get to. A combo is something like Weyun Varel. In other words, if you have one of those things go away, the combo's dead. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Synergy means that everything in the build works together, and it's not one specific thing that makes the build work. For example, let's say you had Weyun Varel and you had, Lee Nollis and Crusher and all that, but you didn't have cost dispersion field. If they stole Varel, then your build would be dead. You see what I mean?
Because Weyun has nothing else to use on.
Say again?
Because Weyun has nothing else to be used on.
Right, exactly. So let's look at this Janeway Prize build. Okay, well, the next thing I want to add is I definitely want to say, all right, well, since auxiliary power tokens are no longer a drawback, and we're going to be working with a bunch of them anyway, what else can we do? So we're looking for cards that, number one, are powerful but have the drawback of giving you auxiliary power tokens, and number two, don't require actions to be used, including actions such as re-enabling them. In the chat, I see, this is weird, I have the chat now, somebody's suggesting the Borg Queen, and that's another good option, but I'm using Janeway for a reason. Number one, it's faction pure, but number two, here's the next step. Okay, well, what else is powerful?
Actually, real quick, the Borg Queen's ability is actually, she takes the action as a free action, which is the same reason it wouldn't work with Picard on the Enterprise. I
think she does it off of the ship's action bar, though.
Yeah,
she
specifically says the action bar should work.
Yeah.
But we're not looking into all the rulings and such here. We're just trying to go with the concept for now.
Right. So the next thing it says, all right, well, what's powerful but requires auxiliary power tokens? Well, enhanced hull plating. Enhanced hull plating says I can just add evades if I want, right? But I take auxiliary power tokens. But the Enterprise doesn't care about that, and Janeway's already giving us a bunch, so we don't even care. Just free evades if our shields are down. Okay. But wait a minute. That needs a tech slot. What grants us a tech slot? Well, hold on a second. Officers grant us tech slots. The researcher grants us tech slots, and it rewards us for having a bunch of the same token. Not only that, but the first officer says if you take a evade, scan, or battle stations, you can place a second token of the same type next to your ship. All right, well, that means because Janeway says additional, with the first officer's second, they stack. So now we can get 3 of the same types of tokens, and we still don't care about auxiliary power tokens. But we have to attach the officer cards to someone. Well, how about Spock? Spock rewards us for using scan tokens. We're clearly going to get a bunch. We can convert scans to evades with Science Officer 2. So now we have a build with we're at somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 points. I have this all written down somewhere, but I'm not.
So
near
go
my
ahead and
notebook.
give me just all the cards you just listed off there.
Well, so far we have the USS Enterprise.
Yep.
We have Janeway.
Yep.
We have Spock. We have the First Officer Resource card and the Science Officer Resource card, and Enhanced Hull Plating. So for the newer players, Enhanced Hull Plating says during the roll defense dice step, you can take up to 2 auxiliary power tokens to add 2 evade results. Great. Spock says if you have a scan token, convert battle stations to hits. First Officer says if your captain's disabled, you can use it with skill 4, and, as I said, you can add another token for an auxiliary power token. Science Officer says scan gives an extra -1 defense die, add a tech slot, and if you can spend scan tokens like evade tokens, essentially. So right now we're at 32, 35, 38. Enhanced Hull Plating is 4 points. 42, right? Yes.
32. So, yep, sounds about right.
Yeah. So I am not okay. So the cosmonaut in the ship says bet Tucker forgets Ilya and loses all of his actions. Yes, that is a danger with this build. And that is one thing you could definitely do. You do have a number of other crew slots left. You're going to want one more.
There.
Because if you're getting multiple tokens, what if for some reason you don't want scan tokens? What's a way to spend battle stations tokens? The officer card that lets you spend them to get extra attack dice, which I thought was terrible, but actually works a little bit in this build. And you can either throw Voltaine on there because you have the scan tokens to use for him if you're not doing battle stations, or you can throw Ilya on there and call it a day. However, I like Voltaine because if you put Voltaine and I think it's Weapons Officer on there, you can. Let me see that if I'm doing my math right. Oh, is Voltaine 3?
Yes.
Damn it! Oh, I did my math wrong. The other thing I was going to try and do. Yeah, the other thing I was going to try and do was get. I wasn't gonna put Ilya and Voltaine on there, by the way.
Oh, I know.
Call it a ha 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 ha. Ha ha.
This is what happens when you actually watch the stream and you actually pay attention to what I'm doing.
Yeah. Rather than I mean, there are a lot of things you could do here. What I was actually going to try to do if Voltaine was 2, which I thought he was, instead, what I would probably do is I'd actually switch it out for Shelby, who is 2, which leaves me with 3 points, which is enough for Quark with dorsal phaser bank. But whatever, because 360s are always good. But the point of this build is, if we take a look at it all together, is I actually sort of like the version with Dimitri and Ilya instead of the Weapons Officer, though. I did this in the middle of class, so whatever. The thing I like about this build is, if you notice, this build has a lot of synergy. Yeah, it's a combo build, but there's no one piece you can remove to get make the whole thing not work. You see what I'm saying? It all works together really tightly.
Because Janeway takes advantage of the Enterprise and Spock takes advantage of the tokens.
Right. And Voltaine if you have him.
Mm-hmm.
And the point of it is, I have found a bunch of cards that interact together really well. That's what building with synergy looks like. And there are much more minor examples of this. You know, you can have something like Kazon Raiding Party with cards that like crits, like Attack Pattern Omega or something. You can have action economy builds in general work like this. The point is, you want to have a lot of working pieces that all work together. The difference between this and throwing and what I would call a good stuff fleet is you don't want to just throw a bunch of good things on your ship. You want to make sure they're all working towards the same goal, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. We like goals.
We like goals. So this is a build where all of the cards are powerful, but they're also larger than the sum of their parts. And just for the sake of argument, if you need, that's a 50-point build. It's legal under the new rules. If you want a 40-point ship to go with it, I would do Generic Nebula, Picard 9, Dorsal Weapons Array, some 2-point crew like Gaval or something, and the officer card that lets you do an extra reroll for 4 dice of 360 with super good quality. But there's probably something better you can do than that.
This is part of a build. This is a ship that is just strong all around.
Right, exactly. And the other thing is, I mean, basically the other thing is pretty close to what I'm doing for my default. I have 40 points and don't know what to do with it right now. So.
Cool.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I've been talking for way too long. Somebody else. Like, what are other ideas we can start with? We have synergy. Like, what else can we start with? All
right. So, as Tucker was going over synergy with his Catherine Janeway prize, like, just to start out with building, like, there's a lot of ideas that are going to get thrown at you at once. You need somewhere to start with, and the very most basic thing to start with is, number one, how do I kill the bad guy, which is the person across the table from me? And number two, how do I prevent him from killing me? So, I mean, really, a theme is going to be a way, how you're going to win the game. And the idea behind something like the Janeway prize is to stack tokens and shoot with super high dice quality while hindering the opponent with, like a lot of scan tokens or something like that, and try to take them out that way. It serves double duty on the defensive side thanks to cards like the Science Officer, which can spend those scans for evades, and the Enhanced Hull Plating, which keeps him alive with more evades. So there is offense, there is defense, you've got your plan of how to kill the other guy, and then you've got your backups to keep yourself alive. And really that's kind of what you want in mostly all of your builds. So I think the really good thing to focus on right now is to, the first step is, of course, how do you want to take out your opponent?
Mm-hmm.
So, David, any ideas there? Give us the theme you like.
There's a couple of things I like doing. I always like ships that give me quality. It's a big reason I'm a fan of any ship that can give me battle stations. It's a reason I love Federation ships, and a reason I love Dominion ships.
Yeah,
Spock.
Just to jump in really quickly, one of the reasons that backup ship was Picard on a Federation ship with the Ops Officer is that that's target lock battle stations with an extra reroll. Quality is super huge. Sorry, done.
Right. It's why one of the most classic combos we saw early on that I still think is relevant is Gul Dukat, skill 7, which gives you a free battle station or an evade with Bohica on a Keldon class or even a Jem'Hadar cruiser. But I prefer them on a Keldon class because you get a 180-degree forward firing arc. And you get 5 dice with that.
I mean, you could put him on a board or a Federation with Dorsal Phaser. And in non-faction peer, there are a lot of good ships for that.
Oh, sure.
It's okay, Bohica and Dukat might as well be stapled together.
Yeah.
They are glued, one and the same. This card takes up 2 slots.
Right, and Bohica's passive ability, as long as you have that battle stations token, converting a blank into a hit is gold in my book. Because there are so many games where you just need that one more hit.
The Breen Aid is another good one.
Right, the Brain Aid does the same thing as Bohica if you have a scan token.
Indeed. Just good cards all around. Sean, how about what kind of a theme do you like to work around? Maybe something that you've been playing around with lately.
I'm actually really fond of enabler builds, things that run Phlox with Crusher or Riker with the Doctor, where basically you're re-enabling everything on your crew for free. So your ship build tends to rely on things that disable as triggers rather than spending actions on them. Really, it's just, you know, like for example, I had a tiny prize build that was running a Seskel. So the thing actually was throwing a fair number of dice after its shields were down, and he gets re-enabled for free every turn. Believe DS9 Garrick was on there for another free evade every turn, and then he brings the extra talent slot. It's just like the enabler builds are definitely interesting for me. Like they can be kind of vulnerable to disruption, so you definitely need to bring things like Koss or Borg Alliance with the field. But I guess I just like the passive action efficiency of the entire build. You can put it on pretty much anything. So.
Oh yeah, and it should be noted that, you know, you don't have to center your build always around cards that, you know, just synergize well together, because the theme for your build can be something as generic and straightforward as, I want to kill my opponent with Kelding classes. This is one that I ran a lot because I'm a big fan of Dominion, if you can see my background back here. But you know, I'm gonna say, you know, my plan to kill the enemy is going to be shoot at them with the big guns, the 5 attack of the Kelding classes with battle stations. That is my main plan right there.
I'm also really fond of the just like the 2 Keldon and a Kraxin build.
Oh yeah, because the Kraxin will bring in that defensive thing. Like this is the same thing that happened really early on back in Wave 1 and 2 when we had when 3 Klingon builds were all the rage, because they just go in and they shoot you, and they have built-in offense and built-in defense.
Something I want to touch on really quickly, or that at least don't want to pass over, is another important thing when it comes to ideas is, Sean, you just mentioned that you expect people to bring disruption, and you want to work around that. One of the things that really impressed me about the builds that the like 5 or 6 builds that you made for various people at Colorado was the way in which you predicted the meta. So would you mind giving your thoughts a little bit on that?
Yeah. Basically, when I do the same, you know, start with an idea and build a list, but I also look at the kinds of things for each list that I would run, that I would be ideal to, basically the counter to my current build, and I try to make sure I have an answer for it. If it's multiple problems, then, you know, I try to build, trying to counter them, as much of them as I can. Just, you know, having things like Koss or Linalis with Koss, you know. Really, it's just, as somebody who enjoys playing combo ships, I have to watch out for and be prepared for things like Croesus or like tubes, although people don't really run tubes too much anymore. But I'm sure like the new scimitar weapon and that kind of stuff will be another problem that comes up soon. So, but really, it's just being prepared to deal with things that will shut your build down. Because if you show up, like even just like the Way and Vero build, like if you show up and you don't have an answer for a single Croesus in their fleet, and you run into that build, like you're not guaranteed you'll run into that, but you're pretty much throwing the match by not having an answer for that particular counter for your build. So that's usually my second line of thought when I'm doing a build, is what shuts this build off.
So we've talked about offense, and here we're just jumping right now back into the defense part of things. What kind of contingencies do I have to prepare for? What screws up my plan of attack, and how do I stop that? So for combo builds, like with Wayun and Barrel, where they get the disables all the time, like you were just talking about, or even something with like the Janeway prize build, you could face something that maybe steals your Spock, and then all of your officer cards are gone as well, things like that. So there's cards.
I will say probably the first thing I ran into when I first used a tiny prize build that finally like killed the build was Admiral Kirk on the opposing fleet, where they'd wait till you built up your Aux tokens, and then they'd start spending the fleet action to go ahead and start shutting your platings down because you can't re-enable them. You don't have the you have too many Ox tokens.
Yep. Man, what would you even do against that? You would need.
Yeah, like my solution was Koss and Vic Fontaine.
Mm-hmm. Things that protect yourself: Koss, Fontaine, Dispersion Field.
There's a new card. The Vidian ship got previewed today, if anybody's curious, and there's a new card in it that's really interesting, which says, if you're going to disable one of my things, I'm going to disable one of your things. It's not that effective because it just means that I'm going to disable that first, and then it's disabled, so it doesn't work anymore. But it's a neat idea, and if you put it behind costs or something, it's better.
Because then they have to disable costs, and you disable them in return.
Yeah.
And there's other ways.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about the new stuff. Like, I'm not really. Like, I kind of figured the Vidians would go that direction, but
they're really bad. We'll preview them at some point. That's not the subject of today. I shouldn't have brought it up. I'm sorry.
That's all good.
It's all right. But yeah, I mean, you've got your prevention cards to try to help you survive, just like enemy disruption. But sometimes enemy disruption can be just as simple as they shoot you more than you can shoot them, and they just kill you first.
Yeah, that's a problem with the Borg.
Disruption.
So basic
the other
defense is always a fine thing just as well. So you just go after, like, increasing your defense with things like cheat death or anything that's running cloaking device or actually has a built-in cloaking device.
Cheat death is definitely like a mandatory on the Tiny Prize. Because it is very easy for you to get one shot, like while your shields are up, because from all those big scary Borg ships.
Oh yeah.
Especially crits. That's the other thing, is if you get crits and lose stuff, assuming it's not something that negates your talents, the cheat death, when it triggers, will actually fix that problem for you.
Yeah. I mean, look, on the topic of disruption by attacking, though, there's an old expression from those of us who played D&D, especially in 3rd edition, which is the best healing spell is something that kills your enemy faster. Or the best condition to inflict on an enemy is dead. There's sort of two sides of the same coin.
A stitch in time saves 9. It's as old as time begins.
A stitch in... yes, where the stitch in time is killing the thing that's going to cause the 9 other stitches to be necessary.
Solve the problem while it's still small before it gets bad. It's a thing that works. It's a thing, I swear it is. But yeah, so I mean, we're looking at prevention for things that directly stop your cards from, you know, doing what you want to kill the opponent. We've got defense so that you just stay alive, because being dead is, you know, the easiest way to be stopped from doing something. And then on top of defense, sometimes you can do a little bit of both by just being at the right range. Mobility is a good way to do some of these things.
Mobility was good till the Borg happened.
Well, hilarious enough, one of the reasons the Borg are so good is because they have mobility.
Oh yeah, but if we're talking still about things that you're worried about, like assimilation tubules or the really close crew gankers like Croesus, if you have things that help you move farther away or just off the board entirely, then they can't affect you as easily.
Right, and one of the reasons, I get to bring it up, but one of the reasons that Sean and I are not a fan of the Vidians that were previewed today is literally almost every single weapon, or almost every single thing they have, works only at range 1. And the way to counter that is to not be in range 1, which is pretty easy.
Yeah, things like quantum singularity, sensor echoing, engaging. What else would be good under this category?
Picard maneuver, Picard 6, flagship that lets you move, fleet captain that lets you move, DAC, Prime Universe DAX, Chakotay, Be Creative,
Tuvok.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Independent
Set
Tuvok.
Soreko in general.
Yeah.
I will say I did have a fun build with the Enterprise E that was using the that crazy defense pattern Omega and Tuvok on one of those re-enabler builds, where it was actually like just spinning circles around a Voyager. It was pretty fun.
Spinning circles
Right.
around a Voyager. That's funny.
It's very fun. So,
Yeah.
I mean, really, we've got this. These are all going to be the building blocks of anyone who wants to start building a fleet.
Hmm.
You know,
And then once you have that idea of what you want to do, and it can be a lot more specific than that. In other words, a lot of things we've said is, well, I want to attack this guy, I want to defend a lot. You can also do what I did in Colorado, which is say, I want to beat this specific build. I think this build, either because you hate the guy who runs it at your local thing, or you
Expect to see it a lot.
yeah, exactly.
Majority.
So, for example, my evaluation was that of the builds I saw in Colorado, I thought a lot of them would be really bad against Borg missile. So, what I did was I said, all right, well, what is the best build in which I can consistently use Borg missile a lot, and went from there.
countering other builds, a theme for your offense.
Mm-hmm. Or for your defense. I mean, you know, if your meta is full of gankers, cost dispersion field is an acceptable place to start building. And, you know, it's like Mark Rosewater said, restrictions breed creativity. Well, you're going to have to find a way to get a Borg slot on your ship, so that's a place to start.
Indeed.
Or just start with a Borg ship, you know, that works too.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that puts you in Borg. So, all right, I'm playing Borg with cost dispersion field. What's
Although,
good?
I will say another solution is definitely something like Fleet Captain with a captain that has a talent already, and then running like Borg Alliance.
Sure.
And just slapping that DF on there for like the 1 point cross faction and then the cross faction plus base cost on the field.
Right, exactly. And then the question is, all right, well, what am I running where I want to run a fleet captain with an elite talent? And I mean, really, a lot of the point I'm trying to make here is that these sorts of things are better than just starting with a blank slate. Because as one of my favorite game developers, Mark Rosewater, says, restrictions breed creativity. So it's hard to look at a blank fleet sheet and go, what do I want to play today? But once I have some idea of my restrictions, I want to be a good attacker, I want to be a good defender, I want to run Wayne Varel, I want to run Borg Missile.
The OP events are definitely good at doing that.
Right, exactly. And that's why, I mean, as much as I complain about the rules for them, well, let me put it this way. One of the reasons that I don't like a series of OPs is that RAF2 is really good at this. Like, what do I want to run now that everything except Borg costs one less point or something?
Okay. Hold on a second.
RAF3
Before we start getting into like specific scenarios, I wanted to make a little brief break point here, so I have a good spot to save on YouTube.
Okay. We should get advertisers. That would help. Find break
We're gonna have a
points.
quick break and we're gonna run a couple ads. No, I'm just kidding.
This
But
segment
Hey.
brought to you by Q. He is not favorable with your dice. If you
Though-
would like to be favorable with your dice, please send a self-addressed stamped envelope to.
No, I will say, if anybody listening out there wants to advertise on the show, it means we could afford to move to, like, you know, Blog Talk or something. That would be cool, right?